Hi, Locke.
Hey, Sarah.
I am so excited that you came on and I get to have this healthified conversation with you. So, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, you too. Thanks so much for reaching out. Excited to catch up.
Yeah. Everyone who is listening or watching, this is Locke Hughes. I have known her since college. And given that we're both kind of immersed in the health and wellness space, have stayed in touch here and there. And I watch her stories on Instagram religiously. And she is such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to health and wellness trends and how to live a balanced life. She is a journalist, content creator, and author who specializes in the health and wellness space, and currently an editor at The Well, which is a holistic health center in New York City. I am going to let her introduce herself, tell a little bit more about her background and story, and Locke, how you got to where you are today.
Sounds great. Yeah, it's so nice to reconnect. And it's been so fun watching your journey over the last few years as well. And I'm just so impressed with everything you've done at Gratisfied.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. Like Sarah said, I sort of like everyone in the wellness world doing a little bit of everything, but I do work full time at this amazing health company called The Well. And we're a holistic health center based in New York, here in Manhattan. But we also have e-com lines and we have programs. It's all virtual for now, but hopefully we'll be reopening somewhat soon when we just branched out with our second location in Connecticut. So that's my day job. But before I joined The Well, I've worked for various wellness and health publications. I did a stint at WebMD. I've worked for Shape Magazine. I worked for Greatest.com. And I also did about 2 years of freelance writing for a bunch of different publications. And during that time, I also wrote a book essentially about sleep. And yeah, so I've sort of been able to combine two of my favorite things in life, which are, living a healthy, balanced lifestyle, and then also writing and content creation. So it's been a really interesting journey. And, this year was nothing like any of us expected. And it's definitely not what I had planned to be doing, working virtually. I really was looking forward to sort of being around people again after being a freelancer for so long. But here I am working from home again. But it's all good because it's all stuff that I feel very passionate about.
Yes, and there's nothing like when you can fill your days with something that aligns and is very rewarding. And when it comes to COVID specifically, I want to get into all of that because it's great how open you are, especially on your social media, just about navigating the situation. But first of all, I want to kind of take a step back a bit and focus on your freelancing career and your writing career and just being so immersed in the health and wellness, journalism and research, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
How has that kind of influenced your personal views on health and self-care? And what was it like kind of before, like college to immediately after, and how has it helped you like evolve your kind of routine practices, beliefs about the health world?
Great question. And also I apologize. There's like a bunch of planes flying outside my window, if you can hear that.
Oh, that's okay. We can hear it.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And sort of like what you mentioned right before we hopped on about sort of thinking about all of the time you could have saved had you known certain things about health and wellness and taking care of yourself. And like looking back, I knew nothing in college, which is like understandable because how are we supposed to know? We're not taught, how to really take care of our health or mental health in school. And personally, like I'm an only child, so it's not like I had a sister or anyone to learn from. So I was really figuring it out from scratch. And in college, I definitely gained the typical beer and like fried food weight. And I remember going to the gym, but just sort of like slogging away on the elliptical. And, you never would really see any results from that. Mental health was sort of like a side note. And, it wasn't a focus of mine, even though looking back, I definitely have struggled with anxiety my whole life. And it's really just been in the past few years that I feel like I've found really what works for me. And I think that's part of the journey for everyone is you have to experiment. Like college wasn't the best for me. And then when I came to New York right after college, is really when I started to, I guess, educate myself more about it. I was working in magazines, not in health yet, but for a women's magazine, and started reading all these health blogs. It was sort of the time when all of those food bloggers started getting known, and right when Instagram started, and I got really into it, and I started running. I like ran some half marathons. And then I sort of realized, wow, I can actually do this for my career, and I can, you know, join the health and wellness publication world. But even looking back then, I think even in my 20s, I was still struggling to find balance between this, you know, kind of overdoing it and running, like making myself get up and run or train for half marathon, and, you know, maybe like eat just like salads for lunch during the week, but then go crazy on the weekends. Like I was still definitely figuring it out in my 20s. And it took probably toward the end of my 20s, a little bit of a bump in the road when I moved to a new city outside of New York and mentally was not in a good place. Like I moved for this job that didn't work out. I ended up like becoming even less healthy, sort of gave up running. Yeah, it was sort of like a dark time in my life, and, you know, nothing tragic happened, but I think we can all relate to just sort of like feeling like nothing is quite right. And during that period, I was lucky enough to find a functional medicine doctor, because that was when I started hearing about adrenal fatigue. And we can go into that. Maybe that's a different question, because I feel like I'm droning on right now. But
No, this is amazing.
Totally recognized that these symptoms were things that I was experiencing. And adrenal fatigue is not something that's talked about a lot in conventional medicine. And it may not be a particularly medical diagnosis, but I think that a combination of a lot of elements of my lifestyle were contributing to this overall feeling of like tiredness and a constant weight gain, even though I wasn't really changing that much about my diet. I just wasn't feeling like myself. And so I sought out functional medicine doctor, which I truly believe in now. And that's why I joined the Well, because we're a functional medicine facility. We have an amazing functional medicine doctor and team. And he really helped me reset my lifestyle through, you know, the medication was involved for like low thyroid, and then a lot of supplements were involved, but it was really about sort of taking a look at your diet, doing more yoga, being more mindful about how your body feels after certain foods, and just sort of like cleaning things up and finding, again, like that balance and what worked for me. And so really ever since then, which was 4 years ago or so, I've really felt like I have found what works for me. And, you know, I do a mix of yoga and strength training, and I love to be outdoors. I did live out west for a year and a half, which was amazing. That lifestyle, being in the mountains, is incredible. But you can really recreate that.
It looked amazing.
I know. Yeah. Like no matter where you live, you can always go for like a long walk outside. So I just make sure to sort of pay attention to how I feel more today. And I feel pretty good despite all the COVID craziness.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you think about it, like that's kind of situational, circumstantial, that's outside of you. But what I'm hearing is that you feel pretty good in your inner environment, like mentally and physically.
For sure. And there are definitely times, I was actually just thinking this weekend, I slept a lot. And I think that's just sort of how my body deals with stress, is sleep.
Yes.
And, you know, I think that part of it is just, there's not a lot to do going on in New York right now.
Yeah.
So
so you take advantage of that, you know?
Yeah, I definitely struggle with a little bit of, you know, I think stress manifests for me as this like sort of tired, lethargic feeling. So I'm not saying I feel great all the time, but it's noticing that and understanding that. And then that's how my body reacts. And it's a sign that I need to do some self-care and, you know, sort of take a step back and look at everything.
Yeah. And I want to highlight something that you're saying, because I think this is so important for people to hear. And I actually just started a Healthified article with like this exact same way of thinking, if you will. And the fact that like especially in social media and Instagram world, people are so accustomed to looking outside of themselves for, health and wellness and lifestyle tips, tricks, advice, what have you. And I think, scientific information and education is so important from an objective standpoint. But when I was health coaching, and what I'm hearing you say is like, you got to find what works for you. You have to tune into yourself. You have to experiment, and you have to educate yourself and kind of like be your own health advocate, if you will. Because when you have that tool in your back pocket, it's something that you can always come back to. And like you said, no one is going to feel 100% all of the time. And so it's understanding what works for you in order to get back to a good feeling place. And I just think that so many people are looking outside of themselves when they really need to understand that there is no destination with like feeling good, that it's always a continual experiment. I mean, and the more you can bring it back to a day-to-day like journey, sometimes I hate to use that word, the better off you'll be.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. And it's like, in other words, there's no right answer for everyone. And I think that a lot of people are looking for that magic bullet, and there's not one. And it's a tough answer. And I think we're both health coaches. And I think that is why health coaching is so valuable, because it really leads people to look into themselves and like ask themselves why this is working, why this isn't working, what's doable for them. That was a really interesting lesson to learn during health coaching training. It's like, you can't tell someone, oh, I think a paleo diet would be good for you. Like, go do that, because, that person might be better on a vegan diet, or, that person might be fine to eat gluten. It's just, there's not a one size fits all answer.
For sure. And especially when it comes to mental health. And I want to applaud you, because you're so great about, talking about it and sharing, your position with mental health. And I think it's so important. The more we can hear about it, the more we can talk about it, the more it lessens that taboo that still surrounds it. And I mean, I feel as if you're a human being, you've experienced anxiety in your life. And I mean, I remember probably when I became aware of anxiety was, I want to say, my 4th year of college. And I remember texting my sister being like, because she had given up caffeine years before. And I asked her, I was like, I'm having this like weird sensation in my chest. Like, do you think I need to stop drinking coffee? But when looking back at it, in hindsight, I knew that I was like struggling with severe anxiety, but no one told me what that was, and when you kind of think about, again, that like outside circumstantial stuff of like, I was getting a degree, I was graduating college, like I was going on to get my master's after graduation, like everything, I had every right to be, happy and fine, but like I wasn't.
Be anxious.
Right. And so, I know like myself that you're very into, yoga and meditation. And when you delve into those spiritual practices, there comes a heightened level of awareness and consciousness, something that I didn't have for myself until like, I want to say relatively recently, 5 years ago. Whereas it's like night and day difference. Like when you're struggling with anxiety and you have consciousness for yourself and like the thoughts that you're thinking, it can just be a game changer in how you navigate through periods like that. So you mentioned that you were kind of going through this dark chapter in your life, and that's when you kind of sought out functional medical health. Did you have the same level of like consciousness and awareness for what was going on that you probably do now back then?
That's a great question. No, I don't think so. I definitely don't think so. That sort of being aware is the first step. And after my journey of the last few years, it's really interesting to sort of sit back and be able to see, it's almost like you see the anxious thoughts like crossing through your mind, and you can recognize them, be like, oh, that's an anxious thought. That's not necessarily reality. That's not what's happening. This is anxiety that I'm feeling. And no, I don't think that I sort of had that same awareness 5 years ago. And I'm not going to say that I meditate every day. I definitely don't. But actually it's a 2021 goal to, even if it's not meditating every day, just continue to do more like self-development reading and
Yes.
reflection, because it's a muscle and it needs to like sort of continue to be worked, that mindful awareness. And yeah, I think anybody can sort of just do some reading and some learning and dabble in meditation, see what you can take from it, see what works for you and what doesn't. Again, it's that sort of that exploration and that experimentation. But yeah, it's definitely a game changer to sort of learn to identify anxiety as this like other than, it's not me, it's like this thing that I have, and sort of that helps me cope with it so much better these days.
Yes. And I mean, mindfulness and I mean, meditation is just one way that you increase mindfulness and awareness and consciousness. And so there are so many other modalities that you can turn to in order to do that. I mean, so many people think that if they don't have a seated practice, they're not going to gain the same benefits, but that's just not true. You know, like you said, like just being able to read or journal or like do an active meditation, whether that's a yoga flow or it's just understanding exactly as you're saying that the thoughts that you're thinking are not you. And, you know, I'm a bar instructor, I'm a yoga teacher, and in my bar classes, I tend to do a little bit more yogic style throughout class. And I remember I just kind of went on a spiel one class and was talking about, you know, the thoughts that you're thinking and how your thoughts are not you. And I had a woman in her 60s after class come up to me and she was like, what do you mean your thoughts aren't you? Like, it was like this concept that like she had just never, you know, because so many people don't have that separation. And a book that really helped me gain that understanding was The Untethered Soul. Did you read that?
I haven't yet.
Oh my gosh, you have to. I've read it twice. It changed my life. It changed my life.
That's what I
have to read that.
21. It's the year of starting to read self-development books again.
Yes, I know. I took a big break actually during COVID because I was like, my mind doesn't need to be put in that place right now. Exactly. So I read a lot of fiction. Actually.
Yes, I've been reading a ton of fiction.
Yes, which has been amazing.
Yes.
So The Untethered Soul and then The Surrender Experience. The Surrender Experiment is his second book, which you have to read too. So it's Michael Singer, and I'll put both of these in the article notes so that people can check them out as well.
Well, I just got that book that you had said you would recommend, Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach.
Oh,
So that's next on my list.
Okay, good. I want to read that one. The Atomic Habits was really good too.
Oh yeah,
you talked about that.
Yeah. One.
So going back into kind of the adrenal burnout, a couple questions with that, because I've never been diagnosed with it. I know that I've experienced it before. And it can get kind of confusing because to me, it seems like a very real thing. Like scientifically, objectively, you know, you have your thyroid. If you're under constant stress day in and day out, I would imagine that it gets taxed and you experience those symptoms. But it can get so confusing when it's just like not as recognized by some people in the medical community. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, so it's thyroid definitely has something to do with it, and it usually goes hand in hand with the thyroid. But adrenal fatigue is specifically talking about your adrenal glands, which are located near your liver, and they are which the organ that produces cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So like you said, if you're constantly under stress, it means that they're going to continually release cortisol. And, if it's long-term and chronic stress, then they can get burned out, hence like adrenal burnout or adrenal fatigue. I think the problem with conventional medicine not wanting to address it is that there's not a pill for it. And so they can't go to insurance and say, hey, I treated this person for adrenal fatigue. I gave them this prescription medication and they're better. Like, it's not a disease like that. So from what I understand, and this could not be totally accurate because I'm not a doctor, but I think that that's sort of the problem with it being recognized in conventional medicine, because to address it, it's really a combination of lifestyle changes. It's
Yes.
changing your diet. It's changing your exercise routine. It's like getting more sleep. It's cutting out alcohol. It's a whole bunch of different things. And supplements are definitely part of it, to sort of help restore your body. And gut health is also really important. And for me, I went on thyroid medication, which I still take to this day. But I think that's sort of the major dilemma, and why it can sort of be a confusing topic.
Yeah. And I love how, I feel like so many people, especially in more of the holistic functional world, and obviously this isn't true for everybody by any means. I try and avoid sweeping generalizations, but they can be very turned off by Western medicine. And same, vice versa. So I love how you used like a balance approach, because I do think that there can be this amazing synergy between the two if kind of used in tandem. So that's great to hear that there's like a combination of stuff that you turn to that kind of got you back to a good feeling place. But when it comes to like the holistic lifestyle things, what were some, I know you kind of glossed over them, but what was some of the steps that the functional doctor kind of encouraged you to take? And then my next question would be like, was that challenging to change? Because I could be like a very like type A person who likes to go at full speed and loves exercise. Like I need it in my life. And I also like the occasional glass of wine here and there and all those things. So if someone was like, you need to slow down and take these things away, like to me, that would be really hard.
It definitely is hard. I would say, sort of backing up, I think what causes it, and what caused it for me, is like I was saying, in my 20s, there's this sense of needing to do it all. And I remember like, I mean, this wasn't even that crazy, but like, making sure that I went to the gym every morning before work, even if I was exhausted. And that was also, even though it wasn't that long ago, that was sort of still when I think the general mainstream health media was like, cut out fat, like, get fat-free dressing, like eat fat-free yogurt, and, have cereal for breakfast. And looking back, it's sort of like, now we know those things aren't necessarily good for you, and like your body needs fat. So I think for me, it was a combination of pushing myself too hard in my 20s, not listening to my body, and not nourishing my body with the right foods. But it wasn't necessarily fault, because that's like what the mainstream media was telling us. We grew up in like Special K was like what everyone was eating for breakfast.
I had a friend in high school who did the Special K diet, and we were like 16. Yeah.
I think I did that too. It was wild.
Yeah.
I think it was, education. So I think that was part of why it happened for me. And then I think the biggest thing was like, my doctor was like, don't like force yourself to go on a run, like just go for like a long walk and like focus on breathing, and focus more on strength training, which helps build your metabolism up. And, don't feel like you need to go to like a spin class, which, oh my God, I would leave, like a flywheel class and just feel totally dead. Yes. That's what people think they need to feel like after workout, but that's not really healthy either. And the way you feel after like a good strength workout or like a good yoga class is so different. And, I guess in that sense, it wasn't hard. It was actually maybe easier to make those lifestyle changes. And it was really nice to give myself permission to say, you don't have to go for a run. Like you can go for a walk, or you don't need to go to, this crazy workout class. You can just go like do some yoga. So I think that was nice. And then learning, sort of more of a Mediterranean diet, how to eat that way, and how to focus on healthy fats, and avocado and olive oil and salmon, and like fat is not bad, and sort of bringing all of those things back in to my diet, and focusing on healing the gut is also really important. And I always had digestive issues my whole life. Like I remember looking back at college photos, and like I was so bloated sometimes, and I'm sure like the beer, but I just always had digestive issues and thought it was normal. I'm sure you've had some clients who've said this. I just thought that's what I had to live with. So sort of healing my gut through supplements and healthier eating. And yes, I do try to cut out gluten still. But I'm also going to have a piece of pizza occasionally. I think all of that really helped me transform my health and sort of get over this feeling of burnout.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, you know, that was one of the things I wanted to highlight today was just your balanced approach to life. And, you know, I know I'm getting snapshots of it on Instagram, but, you know, just from the type of workouts you do to your food, to your travel, to you enjoying your glass of wine. And, you know, I just like, it's just, you seem like you get it now. And obviously I know that you're just like me. I always feel like I'm a student. Like I love learning about this stuff. And, you know, thankfully, like things are emerging past just nutrition and exercise and being put in the forefront of being important, such as gut health and, you know, sleep hygiene that just, you know, we can always be working on, right? Because, you know, we live in a society where, there is always stuff to be working on, yes, but also like we can't know everything right now as like new science is coming forward.
Mm-hmm.
But so I want to shift gears to sleep because you have written a book about this, about melatonin and sleep, and you know, this is actually for me a 2021 goal is to really, yes, there it is, everyone. You can get it on Amazon. I will put it in the show notes as well, so you can find it. It's such an important topic, and I actually just finished another book about sleep called Sleep Better by Sean Stevenson. I don't know if you've heard of him. He has a podcast called The Model Health Show. And, you know, it says a lot of things that people already know, like decreasing the screen time and making sure that your sleep environment is kept cold and you keep work out of the bed and things like that. But it's just such good reminders. So I'd be curious to know, like when you were writing that book in that process, what were some of the things you learned and like big takeaways from that you implement into your life and that you would want your readers to know?
Yeah, I think those are great tips. But it sort of goes back to everything about health. It's like we can know what we should be doing, but actually doing it is the problem. And actually, I did this
Yes.
morning and I've just sort of felt like I keep waking up in the middle of the night and I wake up not feeling super restored.
Me too. And I
So
don't know what it
I
is.
think there's definitely a lot of anxiety and weirdness going on in the world.
Yeah.
But I need to sort of brush up on my sleep habits. I sort of was thinking about that today. I was like, all right, no alcohol this week. You know, make sure to exercise every day, cut screen time. I'm pretty good about getting into bed and reading at night rather than looking at my phone, but could definitely be doing things better. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, I think so. The book is called Melatonin. And the thing about melatonin that a lot of people don't realize is it's actually a natural hormone that our brain produces when it gets dark out. And yes, it's also a supplement that people can buy to help them fall asleep. It's actually not really a sleeping pill. It's really made to help you fall asleep faster, which is sort of a little known fact. But the thing about melatonin is that it's only produced when it's completely pitch dark in your environment. So you mentioned a couple great things about like, you know, screen time and a cold environment is super helpful. Comfortable bed obviously is helpful, but the number one most important thing is sight, or the sense of sight, and making sure that your bedroom is as dark as possible is super, super important, because that's like the only way that your brain can actually start producing melatonin. And it's also found in certain foods, which is interesting. I didn't know that. Like cherries are a good source, almonds, oats. So like a gratified bar would probably be a good source of it.
Boom.
Maybe, I want to say coconut oil or some sort of other nuts. So yeah, I think again, it's a little bit of experimentation and then doing those things that you know you should be doing. Like it's so tempting. Like I woke up last night and I reached for my phone, you know, and I know I shouldn't be doing that. I need to start keeping it out of the bedroom again, I guess. One thing that's also has been helpful for me, I'm pretty sure I included this in the book, is looking into sort of like relaxing music or sleep stories. The Calm app has those sleep stories. I don't know if you've tried them. but I'm sort of
I
obsessed.
haven't.
And
Because the reason why I haven't is because my phone, and for anyone who's listening that was like, oh, I can't imagine not sleeping with my phone in my room. My phone is on a different floor
wow,
in the kitchen charging. Like I just,
yeah,
yes,
really
people, it can be done.
that
So unless I got like an iPod where I could just have that
is,
or something, because
that is true. It's sort of it's an ironic tip because we should be keeping the phones out of the bedroom. But if
yeah,
you have yours in there, I think listening to something is a lot better than obviously looking at your phone.
yes.
Yeah,
Airplane mode, just download it in airplane mode.
yeah, that's true. That's a good tip. So, there's a bunch of different things. I think I have like 20 different sleep rituals, bedtime, like winding down tips that could work for you.
That's amazing.
So it's all about sort of experimenting, and it's not going to be a quick fix, but if there is one takeaway, it's to keep your room as dark as possible and invest in blackout shades for sure.
Yes, because, okay, so I sleep with an eye mask every night.
Okay.
But one thing, yeah, and one thing I recently learned is that your skin has light sensors. So it doesn't matter like if you're even wearing an eye mask, like if there is a light somewhere, it can affect melatonin levels too, because it's like a transdermal,
Wow.
throwing out a fancy word, something like that. So yes, hands down agree with the blackout shades and just making sure it's dark as possible. I mean, I told Alex, my husband, the other night, I was like, can we like straight up like when it starts getting dark outside, like use candles instead?
Yeah.
You know, when the power goes out, and I swear, like you just use candles and you get like a really good night's sleep.
Yep. And or at least like get like your lights on a dimmer and sort of dim them toward the end, like as you wind down, like after dinner.
Yeah. And I think I've probably mentioned this on a different healthified conversation before, but my brother-in-law hiked the Appalachian Trail. I think it was, 2019, and he did it for 5-6 months. So he was like straight up waking up with the sun, going to bed with the sunset. And I mean, he would have nothing else to do when it got dark. I mean, granted, it was the summer, so it got dark a little later, but he said he got just being out in the woods every single day and being in that alignment with his circadian rhythm. He was like, I've never felt better.
Wow.
I know. It
doesn't natural circadian rhythm. And there have been experiments done where people were put in a like completely dark environment. I think was like a cave or something in this particular experiment. And so there's no sense of the sun, right? But their body still on this 12-hour sleep schedule. So it's what we're meant to do naturally. It's just that all of our, electricity has messed us up.
Yes, that's so interesting. So you mentioned foods. So I think I remember you telling me when you were writing the book that there's going to be like recipes and stuff in there. Is there recipes and stuff?
Yes, I think we did talk about that. Yeah, I actually worked with a recipe developer because that is not my forte, but I actually love it. It's like maybe my favorite part of the book is there's like all these
beautiful
and like sort of like
oh my gosh, so
latte
pretty.
And like some granola bar recipes and spiced almond milk. So there's a lot of cool things that are conducive to sleeping better at night. Alcohol is not one of them though. Everyone, it's so tempting.
Unfortunately,
that a glass of wine is going to help you sleep, but that can tend to.
Well, because I mean, it supposedly for a lot of people, it helps you fall asleep faster, but then you're going to have that like restlessness, wake up in the middle of the night situation. And for me, and like I feel like I know that probably it's anxiety or cortisol or hormonal imbalances involved because I can fall asleep fine. It's just like clockwork between 3 and 4:30. I wake up. And I remember I actually the other day Googled this. I was like, why am I waking up at the same time every single morning? Because it'd be like 4:30 on the dot. And then it like took me down this rabbit hole of like Chinese medicine and having it like connected with different organs. Have you heard this? Like if you wake up between 1 and 3, it's liver. And if you wake up between like 3 and 5, it's lungs. And it was like trying to tell me that's associated with like grief and anger and depression. I was like, I'm not sad. Like I'm very stressed out a lot of the times, but I'm not sad unless there's like something going on that I just can't subconsciously. I don't know.
I've totally heard that, and I don't buy into it personally.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So maybe I'll just, think that my lungs are fine and I just need to do more stress management.
I think so.
Okay, good. So I want to quickly talk about COVID and, just kind of the past year. And you recently wrote an article about life lessons that you learned over the past year, which you can find through her Instagram, which I'm going to have her share with you. It's a great read. But what were some of the major lessons that you learned? What were your silver linings, and how did you navigate kind of through the dark days?
Yeah. Well, thanks for mentioning that article. I like to always reflect at the end of the year on things I learned. And this year was obviously a big one. Lots of lessons.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like my biggest lesson was sort of like this whole racial injustice thing, but that's not really health related. So I kind of don't want to even go there. But I do feel like that's what stands out to me from this last year. I've just sort of my eyes have been opened, and I, followed all these people on Instagram that I'm continuing to learn from. And, with the current administration ending and a new one coming in, like, I feel so much optimism and hope. But it's also opened our eyes to how divided the country is. And so I think like reckoning with all of that has been the biggest theme from the last year. But hold on, I'm actually pulling up my article to, I think that's one. But then I think the second biggest theme is like how important the little things are in life. And especially when it comes to like our health and self-care. Like, I know you do yoga and bar. And so it's like, I just miss working out with people in like a heated room and leaving and like talking to people and having that like energetic connection with other folks. Or even going to like a neighborhood restaurant here in New York and talking to somebody at the bar or sitting at the bar and like getting to know the bartender. It's like those little human connections that I'm really missing, especially like as a single person. It's like, I'm never going to take that stuff for granted again. I just want to go to a yoga class. And I never thought that would be such a thing to miss. But yeah, I think those are like sort of the two biggest themes from last year.
Yeah. And, speaking of that, it's I actually did like a private yoga session with my friend Jane. I've had her on here before. She has this, business called the Yoga Shed, and she ended up in COVID kind of like renovating her outside backyard shed and made it into this like yoga shala, beautiful space. Anyway, so I did a one-on-one session with her, and she was able to do hands-on adjustments in this environment. And I have not, and that's one thing for yoga for me, is like, I've tried really hard to maintain my practice at home, but there's nothing like going into a studio with other human beings and having the instructor put their hands on you and make adjustments, and like hearing other people's breath. And like, when she was doing that, I was like, oh, like that just changes. I mean, I hadn't had that type of experience in yoga in a year probably. And it was just, like you said, it's just like, I've missed that so much.
Yeah. Yoga is definitely one of those workouts that's really hard to recreate at home for me.
Right.
I've been loving like doing Obey Fitness at home, or I do Peloton runs outside, but yoga is definitely like a great in-person experience.
Yes. So did you have any kind of like silver linings over the past year? If you didn't, that's okay. I know sometimes it can be hard to think of.
I think I wrote this is sort of like an overarching theme in that article that I wrote, but we're definitely all stronger because of this last year. Like, this has been a really tough time for everyone, whether it's financially, emotionally, a whole bunch of things have happened to people I know. People have lost loved ones to COVID. And, I think that we'll all come out of this a lot stronger and like a lot more self-aware. I know I will, and sort of know that we can do hard things and know how resilient and and strong we really are. So I think that's a good silver lining for everyone.
Yeah. That's awesome to hear. I love that mantra. And I say it to myself often is I can do hard things.
Yes. It's such a good one.
Yeah. And I feel like when, people are kind of following someone on Instagram and, COVID aside, and, they're just living this quote unquote ideal life. But no one understands that everything that everyone's doing, there's something hard about it. And so it's just never the way that it appears. And so I just think that it's not about finding a path or a job or something like that that just is always easy, but it's about just having the belief in yourself that you can do things when they get hard. So love that phrase.
Yeah.
Okay. So my last question of the day, well, it's kind of two parts. And I have a personal fascination with morning routines.
Okay.
Oh, so I would love to hear about your morning routine, but then I'm adding on to it because I'm also would love to hear about what would your ideal day look like, and not on vacation at the beach, but a random Wednesday. What was your ideal day?
I think, it's a tough answer because I really don't have a morning routine right now. And it's something that's continually on my to-do list. Maybe my answer will be ideally what my morning routine would be, because to be totally honest, living in New York right now, well, I guess I have a little bit of one. I have a semblance of a morning routine, is that I always have my Four Systematic mushroom coffee, and I mix vital proteins, collagen, which I swear has helped my nails and my hair. And I mix it with almond milk. So that's sort of my morning little elixir.
Ritual. Love it.
And then I just, move from my bed to my desk and I start my day. I sometimes do obey fitness in the morning, but I guess ideally what I've done in the past is wake up, and then while I was drinking that, I would actually have it right here, is this amazing book. I think you bought it, this one, Journey to the Heart. And
yes.
Daily devotionals, or, sort of daily readings. This really changed my life the year that I did that. So I think whether it's this book or something else, I think waking up, making yourself a hot drink. And I truly believe in the health benefits of Four Sigmatic. But this is not an ad. So whatever, warm drink of your choice, and drink that, and read something inspirational or uplifting. Try to do a meditation if you're into that. I think that's a foolproof, easy way and effective way to start your day off on. So that's what I would do in an ideal world. And I also love moving my body in the morning. I'm just not really a morning person these days. But I do love Obey Fitness. So I think in an ideal situation, I would get up, do that little morning routine ritual, do a workout. I've really been loving their sculpt classes and their bar classes. And then, if it was a nice summer day in New York, I love the West Village, which is where I live. And I'm just so ready for it to come back to life. And go, for brunch and meet some friends, and maybe, do a little work at a coffee shop. Makes me so happy about New York, and one thing I really miss right now, for sure. And then that, I am all about balance. So I love to, meet friends for a drink, have some wine over dinner, and then watch some Netflix and call it a day. That's probably a day living in the city.
Yeah, I could have spoken those words. Sounds wonderful. Yeah, and I'm sure being in the city and not being able to kind of have those experiences out and about is not easy, but hopefully the light is at the end of the tunnel.
I'm starting to see the light at the end, for sure.
Yeah, good. Okay, well, that so many great nuggets in there, and I cannot wait to share this conversation. And before we sign off, tell people where they can find you.
Well, you're so nice to follow along on Instagram, which is just my name, Locke Hughes. I don't think it's that interesting, but I'm actually more, and one thing
I'm like,
that,
where is she now?
yeah, I have been traveling quite a bit during COVID. So that's maybe some silver lining as well. But I think I mentioned earlier that I will start health coaching again this year after taking some time off of it. So I do hope to sort of share more health tips coming up soon. So follow along.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you so much for this. It's been such a wonderful conversation. And it's just great to catch up with you. And I know we'll be in touch. So have a good rest of your day. And yeah, I'll let you know when this comes out. And yeah, just great talking to you.
Yeah, so great to talk to you too, Sarah.
Okay. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
All right. Bye.